Alright, so we're here on the Microsoft campus. I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
And Eric.
Hello.
And I think we're going to talk about Windows Azure, is that right, Eric?
We are. We're going to talk about one bit of Windows Azure. So the Azure Services Platform was something that we talked about in the PDC, end of 2008. It's a big thing, lots of different technologies from lots of different product groups. The one bit I want to talk about was Windows Azure, the Cloud OS piece. Is that okay with you guys?
So where does that fit into all those things they talked about at PDC? Because you had all these different services. You had .NET services, and there were all these different pieces.
Yeah, so there's lots of bits that make up the Azure Services Platform, and those bits came from different product teams. So we have the SQL team worked on SQL services, the idea of a relational database capability in the cloud. So running off-premise that you could just leverage in terms of storing data and doing some compute capabilities around that data. But that was from the SQL team. We had another team working, or several teams working together on something called .NET Services. .NET Services is a service bus. So most of us have come across an enterprise service bus in one form. Well, what about an internet service bus? As well as workflow capabilities running in the cloud, running off-premise. And also controlling access control, identity and all that kind of good stuff between on-premise and off-premise. And the last piece, which I know the least about, is live services, which is, there's a lot of interest from early adopters around building consumer-based applications around live services, handling contacts that go across many nodes and not
we get access to that massive network of potential network of contacts, don't you?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different bits in there, and one of those bits is Windows Azure, the Cloud OS. Which looks and smells a lot like running Windows Server. Except from our perspective as developers, all we do is we hit deploy to the Cloud OS called Windows Azure, and we just deploy our project. So when we get the point where we've built an application, an ASP.NET application, we'll just say, deploy now, and it will just deploy onto Azure.
So draw the distinction. First of all, can you explain exactly what you mean by Cloud OS? And secondly, can you draw the distinction between me purchasing, shall we say, a Cloud OS and me purchasing a hosted server space with some hosting company?
Okay, so the industry's got lots of different takes on a Cloud OS, but at its heart they all agree, which is the idea that there is some clever stuff going on outside the boundaries of your organization which allows you to run compute cycles and store bits of data in a way that's incredibly easy for you to get started with, easy for you to expand, have additional capacity and capabilities. But we all have different ways of doing it. The different vendors playing in that space. It's all about virtual machines. So as a developer, you would construct a virtual machine that could be hosted by the Cloud OS, by the Cloud Fabric. So there's a big effort there on the developer. You have to define what's in that virtual machine, keep that patched, etc. So for us, it's a much simpler model.
And the distinction between that and me, that sounds very like me buying some hosting space and just deploying a virtual machine to it. But so we've got a slightly more abstracted view.
Yeah. So it becomes Microsoft's responsibility to keep that thing patched and keep it up to date and keep the right versions running and all the security patches applied and all that kind of good stuff. Our role as a developer is we just need to deploy our apps and make sure they run and deploy new versions of those apps, and everything else is kept good and working by Microsoft. Yeah, whereas if you went through some kind of host, you'd have a lot more responsibilities that you'd pick up.